Welcome to the Wonder of Woo podcast, where we highlight how businesses can scale profitably by serving others well. I'm Daryl Zavadny.
And I'm Ed Howie.
And this is
the Wonder of Woo. If you're a business owner investing time, money, and marketing only to be frustrated by losing customers, then this podcast is for you.
We are delighted to have you on another episode of the Wonder of Woo podcast, where we celebrate the rewards of serving others well. Now, Ed, every time we do this, we talk about how the purpose of this is to highlight how you can scale a business profitably by serving people well. Now, by saying that, really what we're saying is it doesn't just feel good, it's actually really good business.
Oh, yeah. Not only is it the right thing for humans, it is the right thing for profits.
Indeed. Well, again, we do this often where I do want to sort of decode
That's right.
the Wonder of Woo, the title, as level setting. What is the Wonder of Woo?
The Wonder of Woo is winning others over and over. There's 3 O's, and that's intentional because the belief is that while it does take effort on all our parts to win others over, to be nice, to be kind, to be caring, whatever, to do it over and over again in a long-lasting relationship, that takes intention, it takes discipline, it takes processes. And so we talk about the big picture here, but we also talk about the nuts and bolts of how people that have inspired us, how the things that we've learned actually make it happen. And again, it's not only good for business, it is great for yourself. It's great for life.
Right. Yeah, indeed. Now, we've covered a lot of ground as we've sort of, unpacked, various facets of the Wonder of Woo. And I encourage all of our community, go back, check out any episodes, look at the title and see what might be of interest to you or really application as a business leader. Today, Ed, we're going to cover something that for maybe our finance friends or people who are inclined toward deep accountability and responsibility.
Yikes.
This one's for you. Yeah, it may not be for the marketer inherently. Ed,
it actually is.
Yeah,
I'm being silly.
Yeah, right. Yeah, but ultimately, that's what I was going to say. Ultimately, the application has to be for all of us. It has to be. So the title of this episode is "Measure What Matters and What You Measure Matters." So measure what matters and what you measure matters. So, yeah, and again, I mean, speaking to our community, that feels like, okay, Daryl, thank you. That's really great.
It's like signing up for econ class or something.
Right, yeah, or even, I appreciate your preaching at me, and that is not the spirit of this at all. The reality, Ed, is that as business leaders, we are not short on data. Oftentimes, the issue is not data.
I think actually there's an epidemic of data, that there's so much data that we have access to that we could process that I don't know about you, but it boggles my mind sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So maybe what we can do at the beginning is sort of talk about maybe some areas where we've stumbled in this, where it hadn't gone great, or even some categories of life that, certainly this applies to life in general as well, because there's busyness as leaders, there's busyness in life. And so how might this manifest? And let's sort of pull this thread for the benefit of our community. Do you have any examples of where we might go with this?
For sure. It's cute and it's humorous, but it's also functional. And the thing that the life lesson it was for me, and we talk about intentions. We also talk about a lot about that. The thing that is like the biggest danger to intentions are distraction.
Right.
And so this is kind of a story about intention, distraction, and then the power of measurement. So
sure.
I was at HEB.
Okay.
And
this is the straw story, right?
This is the straw story, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
And this is humbling too.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So going from Chick-fil-A to HEB, I appreciated the power and the profitability of fountain beverages. So and working with Coca-Cola, we're going to roll fountain beverages out to X number of HEB stores, and we come up with all the plan and all the
high margin items,
everything. Yeah, it's going to go with our chicken tenders, blah, blah, all this stuff. The one thing, and this is just an aside, HEB stands for Howard E. Butt. The branding is Here Everything's Better.
Right.
I wanted to call the 32 ounce the Big Butt, but that was not allowed. But anyway, so we're rolling out fountain drinks, and everything is frankly perfect and brilliant.
Yeah. As I would expect.
Of course, until like literally, at H-E-B, your day starts at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m., 4 a.m. So I happen to be in the office at 7 a.m. or so, which is typical. And this is like 2002. And my phone rings, and it's one of our department managers from one of our 300-some stores. And they said, "Hey, Ed, quick question. Which straws do we use with the new beverages?" I said, "We use the straws we have for the customers."
Right.
I was like perplexed. They said, "They don't fit the cup." The straws we had in the system were about a half inch shorter than the top of the lid.
That's swallowed up by the lid.
Yes. So the straw literally measure-wise doesn't fit the cup.
Parabolically, what a hilarious example.
Yes, but principally, we were not intentional about figuring out exactly what we needed to measure to ensure the success of the product rollout.
Right.
We thought about a lot of things, and we measured a lot of things. Profitability, supply chain, 4 flavors versus 6 versus 8, this equipment. But I not take responsibility because I was a leader of the team. I didn't go, "Hey, did anybody check the straws?"
Right.
And so my life principle is measure the straws, but more importantly, know that you have to measure the straws. Because, again, I'll use the word distracted, and distracted is not like a lack of competence. Distracted could be just based on the fact that we have so much volume. At H-E-B, and I'm sure as many people's lives in their community, you're managing a lot of things a lot of time. The only thing we were not doing in life, sorry, let me say that differently. It's not like the only thing we were doing in life was rolling out fountain beverages. We were doing a lot of
there was a lot spinning in the background.
Said, "Hey, who gives a hoot about the straws?" It just was overlooked. And that happens.
Right.
So if you're not intentional about really studying what you're measuring, I think that's really one of the first principles is know what you're measuring and know what you're not.
Yeah.
But measure the right things.
Absolutely. Well, and, we talked about this. I mean, this cloud of all the things on the plate of the leader.
The leader and your team members too, right?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know about you, but on my team members, there's more on their plate than there's ever been.
Right. Yeah. So in the midst of all of that, holy smokes, how do we take inventory of what we need to do? And really, again, we titled the episode "Measure What Matters," and what you measure matters. It wasn't on the scorecard. It wasn't a consideration. So in the midst of all of that craziness and the cloud of data in front of you, what is that? What do you need to measure? What matters? It's funny. I've got an example even of a failing in our restaurant. I own, as you know, and operate a Chick-fil-A restaurant, and we have tried to grow and faithfully serve. And our staff was kind of walking through seasons of really trying to set these KPIs. And all right, how's our speed and this and that, and among the things that we were looking at is revenue. Any business owners thinking, well, revenue, cash on hand, and what do I've got in staff, and so we were looking at revenue, and our staff was kind of patting themselves on the back, and I was sitting there thinking, yeah, but we've come through this hyperinflationary period, and unfortunately, we had to take price to, kind of preserve what we felt like was a reasonable profit margin. And everybody, I mean, heck, even I go to H-E-B, which I love, and I look at the ticket and I think, oh heavens, life has gotten expensive.
It's everywhere,
right? So, we as a leadership team, whereas you all maybe missed something, we were measuring the wrong thing. And
so measuring sales. How was that the wrong thing?
Right. Yeah. But so it's interesting because we looked at it and we said, yeah, but our customer count's down.
Okay.
We have the opportunity to serve fewer customers now, even though revenue was up, and
your sales is up.
Yeah.
But there's less customers each day.
Yes. And so we looked year over year and said, for some reason, we have the opportunity to serve fewer customers. And so it caused us to dig deeper when we flipped the paradigm and said, I wonder if maybe the data isn't it's not telling us what we think it should, or maybe it's not telling us the real story. We're asking the wrong questions. We started looking at it, and it changed the way our team approached the customer experience. And all of a sudden, we said, I think there's an opportunity in speed. I think we could position people differently here. I think we could do this better. I think we could do this faster. I think we could be, tighter on the product quality of this. And next thing you know, it changed the way that we led the business simply by changing what we measured. Whereas we at first thought, Ed, like, yeah, I mean, we're good. Like, we're up. In a post, hyperinflation world, the temptation might be to say, yeah, things are good. And so for me, it really was an opportunity as a leader to look in a mirror and say, am I being really careful and really honest about what matters to my customer?
Yeah.
And am I measuring it well?
And what really mattered to you too, as far as to understand kind of the overarching health. One of the challenges we have as leaders, we have our macro metrics and we have our micro metrics. And any of us, our team should have macro and micro metrics as well. What I mean is the big picture stuff, but then the stuff that's actually like literally functionally relevant today. I've got a personal example that as you were talking, I personally started over the last 2 to 3 years shifting the way that I try to manage my health.
Okay.
And I started taking, it's kind of funny, a macro approach where I realized that if I lead with protein and have a target of the grams of protein based on my weight, and then I make sure the carbs and fats are balanced and lower than that individually, that I'm leading with protein, that is the best way for me to manage lean muscle mass. And so, like, for example, I stopped weighing myself 3 years ago. Okay?
Yeah.
And so when I'm in the zone and I'm measuring those things and I have like a target calorie intake based on what my exercise is, the engine's working well.
Yeah.
For the last 18 days, I haven't done that intentionally. Okay, so I said, I want to take a break from that discipline.
Right.
We were on vacation, we're on kind of stuff, but now I'm getting back into that.
Sure.
And so one of the things about the metrics is that know what works for your enterprise, for yourself, but then also sometimes you need to focus on a different metric than the other. I focused more on my sleep and what my Garmin was telling me for sleep for those 15, 14, 15, 16 days. And now I'm shifting back into it. So metrics, my mentality has always seen kind of metrics as kind of like discipline and metrics as almost punishment and metrics as like confining me. I have found it through maturity that metrics are very liberating.
Sure. Yeah.
Because, I mean, think about if you're driving a car and you really don't know what the speed is, there's so many things at risk if that were the case.
Yeah, absolutely. I've, to that analogy, I've thought about if I were bowling and I blocked your ability to see the pins and I just said, roll it down the lane, Ed, you got it. Boy, it sounds like you hit a lot. Throw your next one, you'd have no idea, right? So I love that you went there.
That is a great. Seriously, that is a great.
Yeah, and the reality is we do that as leaders all the time. We're like,
life too.
Yeah, in life and as leaders. Yeah, and I love that you went there with personal health because I think there is application in our community, not just as a leader of your enterprise, but personally to say, what KPIs are important to me? Is it a leading goal? Is it a lagging goal? And the reality is, it's gonna differ. Depending on the person, depending on what the objectives for this year or this quarter are.
Well, and I think it applies in every department, every lane, every function of our business. Being a marketer, being a brander, the belief was that the digital age is going to make marketing simpler,
right?
Because you're going to have all these metrics and all these analytics. Well, have any of you ever looked at the Google Analytics report? The 70 pages of PDF you could print out or on the screen.
Yeah.
And it's telling you everything. And I have sat in way too many meetings where we reviewed all 70 pages, and I'm not being exaggerative of that. And we were like, this is not informative.
Right.
What are the 2 or 3 metrics? So one of the things in that case, and other cases I found, is it's great to have 100 data points. You better know what the most important 3 are, and you better be watching those 3.
Right. Yeah.
Whether it's protein or traffic count.
Absolutely. I think it's a great admonition. I'd love to pivot our conversation, if we can, to maybe practically how or why we might be inclined, you and I and our community, where are places where we can get maybe off base on this? I mean, we've alluded to it, but I think for the purpose of clarity, it might make sense to just say, hey, what are potential pitfalls in the pursuit of measuring what matters and what you measure matters? Can you think of any of these pitfalls that either you've experienced or that others have, experienced that you think, here's maybe where I think you get sideways? For example, I know early in my leadership career, we didn't even really do a great job of tracking it. And then there was this thing called accountability. Like we really it was, I don't know, I like you. I don't want to. And so I was fearful as a leader, and I was, I just thought, I don't know, accountability feels mean. And to your point, it's actually really kind. Like clarity is kind. For me, there was maybe a lack of real clarity on what we were measuring and a lack of accountability. Anything else that pops up in your mind?
Yeah, for sure. One thing that pops up is that data oftentimes is not contextual. Okay. Does that make the data inaccurate? No. Okay. So let's say you are responsible for business development, and let's say that you commit to make 10 calls this week, and let's say that you made 6. The why you didn't make the other 4 is not irrelevant, is not additive to the conversation, but it doesn't negate the fact that you committed to 10 and you only made 6.
Mm-hmm.
And we talk about being kindness. Kindness is not lack of accountability. Kindness is not like, oh my gosh, let's just all love on each other and sing kumbaya and you just do better tomorrow.
Right.
And maybe you can get 7.
Yeah.
There's accountability when you tell your customers that you're going to sell them hot fries, to sell them hot fries. There's accountability when you say you're going to lead the meeting effectively at 7:30.
Right.
You show up at 7:40. There's not a lack of accountability in this whole idea of metrics.
Right.
But we're also not suggesting that you don't take into effect context, because that's where I think most leaders can fail. To your point, we either focus on the context and minimize the metric, or we focus on the metrics and we minimize the context. I believe the most well-informed, the most impactful leaders have the ability to navigate both and know when to lean in which of those two.
Great point. And I maybe I want to touch on 2 quick things. One is the role of celebration. And I think when we talk about
Big fan.
Well, and you are, and I love that. And I haven't seen it directly in your business, but I've seen it through your people. That I can only imagine, how the role that celebration plays. I think when we talk about accountability, we think discipline, and if you don't, I will. But the positive side of accountability is, celebration is pausing to do that. And so I think the encouragement for our community is to just say, as you process through this, as you think through, like what, I need to measure what matters, and what I measure matters. What role does celebration play? There's the accountability side of, you said you were going to,
right?
And, did I not give you the resources you need, the skills you need, or did you just not execute? Was it a knowing or doing thing?
Right.
And then there's also an opportunity on the other side of that to say, boy, I am so proud of you. You crushed it. I think that's an important thing maybe to call out, because I think, particularly if the finance discipline, whoever person, I'm not dogging the finance discipline mind, because it's magnificent, and we need to balance accountability to the task,
right,
with a celebration.
Well, so 2 things about that. One is that, do we only celebrate the outcome, or do we celebrate the journey?
Right.
I think at the right time, the right place, the answer is yes to both.
Yeah, I think about that as a parent. I think, boy, I want to celebrate effort and striving and all of that, not just the grade or the thing.
But then to that point is that we can all visualize the celebration of let's order pizza for the team, or let's give everybody 4 hours off. I will tell you, and this is transparency, not braggadociousness.
Mm-hmm.
Is that from time to time I would write, typically with a Sharpie on a pad, a little note maybe 1, 2, 3 sentences, maybe a little more, but never like a multi-page note, and leave that note on my team's desk.
Right.
Typically late at night or early in the morning. So when they walk in, there's something waiting for them. Okay. I frankly thought nothing of it. I don't mean that like it sounds. I thought nothing of it from the standpoint that I thought it was just a nice thing to do. It's kind of my personality, that kind of stuff. The meaningfulness to my team of that action, that intention and that behavior was actually, I had undermeasured the value. Now, I don't write a note every 3 nights and sneak in here and put it on their desk kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I try to honor the power of it, but as a leader, do it intentionally and with the purpose of the desired impact. And you know what? The cost is about 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, you may have a team of 1,000 people or 2,000 people or 200,000 people.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
You got to
again,
contextualize
the principle is to contextually is that celebration can take all forms.
Yeah.
But I do know this, that the fastest way we increase the probability of woo is to celebrate the presence of woo.
Absolutely. Well, and I love how you're connecting, you're kind of through that example, and I think it's applicable to your point for our community is how you're connecting care to excellence and execution, right? They're not incongruent aims. They should not be. They cannot be.
Nope.
For an enduring brand, for an enduring company.
But here's the deal. You can celebrate woo and you can acknowledge poo at the same time.
Right.
Meaning,
right.
I'm no way a proponent of, let's just celebrate the wins and let's ignore the misses. The worst thing you could do for your business is to ignore the misses. Right. Do you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it might be a temptation of a leader, either because of distraction, lack of intention, measuring the wrong things. I want to raise up as we conclude our episode with the idea that this connects to woo, to winning others over and over. I think it's easy to isolate and think, I measure things. We're doing that, but ultimately, measuring, measurement matters, and what you measure matters. Connects to winning others over and over. It connects to the idea of scaling profitably by serving others well. It's not an incongruent thing to say that what we measure is, it sits over here, and then, oh, by the way, the customer service team also cares for our people, right? This is a part of the thread of winning others over and over, right? So as we conclude today, it's important, I think, for us to remind ourselves that measurement matters and what you measure matters because it is connected to winning others over and over.
Right. It's connected to the fact that are you truly giving your customers what you want? Mm-hmm. Are you giving your team members what you want? And again, the optimized part, are you doing it in a way that you can do it over and over again? And that over and over again means, is it truly profitable? Is it truly effective? You might be measuring something and putting all this energy to it, and it's not making the impact. And so it is directly connected. And there is a tremendous amount of empathy and sympathy between us because we know there's tons and tons of metrics.
Right.
I think the encouragement as well as the challenge is for all of us is to your point, measure what matters and know really, really, really what matters, not only to your bottom line, but to your, let's just call it your woo quotient.
Right. Indeed. It has been a great privilege to spend time with you on this episode. We do hope that this has helped you to highlight, maybe even tighter, what gauges you need to look at so that you can serve others better and better. And every time we wrap up with conviction, we say the same thing. And what is that?
Everyone wants woo.
Thank you for being with us. We'll see you next time on the Wonder of Woo podcast.
So that's it for today's episode of The Wonder of Woo. Head on over to Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to subscribe to our show. One lucky listener every single week who posts a review on Apple Podcasts will win a chance in the grand prize drawing to win a $25,000 value private VIP day with Daryl and me. Be sure to head on over to thewonderofwoopodcast.com and pick up a free copy of our gift. And please join us next time.